very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. With the news, I'm Shifara Olaka, and many thanks for joining us. The Council of Ministers in today's cabinet session has endorsed a draft proclamation for the formation of a National Dialogue Commission. The formation of the commission is aimed at bringing an independent and credible institution to carry out an inclusive national dialogue that will involve political elites with a diverse approach toward major national issues and the public at large. The Council has referred the draft proclamation to the House of People's Representatives for approval. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his Canadian counterpart Justin Trudeau have held phone discussion on current issues. The telephone conversation between the two leaders focused on the conflict and related issues in the northern parts of Ethiopia. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Canadian counterpart further exchanged views on developments that have been taking place following their similar discussion on November 13, 2021.
Addis Ababa is more developed than Nairobi.
On a beautiful day in Addis Ababa, my friend and I decided to go and explore the city and see how beautiful, amazing, developed the city is, as well as visit some of the touristic places like Unity Park, Friendship Park, and places that the government has put intentional habits or measures to make this place look more beautiful and more maintained and taken care of.
See, Addis has really improved. We even have like walking paths that have like a carpet sort of situation going on. Nice building on the other side and some green stuff down here. So beautiful. You see pathways. Great, great.
Addis Amai, Addis Ahai, Addis Enough, Addis Hassan, Yingas, Ifsas, Samai.
Today, I have walked the most here until I made it to a bus station on this side. I can't believe it.
Addis Amai, Addis Ahai, Addis Enough, Addis Hassan, Yingas, Ifsas.
Welcome back. Now, scholars laud the push by some African leaders, including Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, for Africa to have a permanent representation in the UN Security Council is timely and appropriate. Talking to ETV English here today, the scholars said it is unjust for a continent of over 1.3 billion population to remain without a permanent representation. Goshumalisa reports.
The African continent usually has 2 to 3 non-permanent seats on the Security Council, currently held by Kenya, Tunisia and Niger. Gabon and Ghana will replace Tunisia and Niger on 1 January 2022. Prime Minister Abiy is not alone in the push, as Senegalese President Macky Sall and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Tuesday denounced the unfair representation of Africa in the UN Security Council, regretting that no Africa country is a permanent member. In an exclusive interview with ETV, scholars from the Dreadwa University said the push by some African leaders, Africa with 54 nations certainly deserves more.
Including not only Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, including Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa and the Senegalese President also share the same statement. They are true.
The scholars echoed the need for a reform process that addresses the obstacles caused by the imbalance, resulting from the determination by some Western powers to preserve their entrenched self-interests.
When you take Africa, it's a continent of 1.3 billion people, right? These huge people, but Africa not represented internationally, especially in Security Council. So regarding this statement, especially you see lack of African representation in United Nations organization and the Security Council had brought a lot of consequences on us, right? Pressure
When African issues are raised in the security affairs, security in the United Nations and in other arena, no one represents as a veto member. And the veto member of the Security Council and the United Nations considered, or the Western power considered Africa as undeveloped and which were not as such important for the political international relationship.
Recalling that the global body devoted 12 times this year along on Ethiopia, Ndawaka said this would not have happened had Africa had the permanent representative in the UN that it desperately needs.
When Ethiopian case currently appears as an agenda in Security Council, we will benefit from the other countries like China, Russia, India, etc. Had we been there, or African, the continent represented there, we should not supposed to be represented by other, or our agenda should not be supported by other.
The scholars further pointed out African issues should be dealt by Africans at the UN Security Council.
It is time now to represent African in the Security Council as a permanent member, because the issue of Africa should be dealt by African one, and the other is it also equality of continent, equality of states.
Especially because if Africans have a voice there, so African issue will be resolved by them, first of all. At the same time, Africans also have voice.
The scholars called for greater unity and solidarity between African states, adding that this paves the way for the representation.
Now, as a clear manifestation of the UN bias toward the terrorist TPLF, it is to be recalled that journalist and historian Jeff Pierce criticized the UN for repeatedly failing to publicize TPLF's looting and abusing of UN staff. He also said UN staff members were reportedly intimidated and harassed by the TPLF forces, while this was conveniently, ignored by the global body. While briefing journalists on Thursday, along with Commissioner of the Ethiopian National Disaster Risk Management Commission, Mitiku Kasa, UN Ethiopia Humanitarian Assistance Coordinator Catherine Suzy, however, said the following.
The United Nations strongly condemns the recent misappropriation of large quantities of humanitarian food stocks in Kombolcha town, small-scale theft of food stocks and harassment carried out by elements of the Tigray forces. 130,000 people have been reached. So people were busy moving food. But of course, you know, and this is what Commissioner Mitiku said, many people have been without assistance for a while. So there was some looting. And it's something looting within the community that you kind of understood, that if it was you, right, and you hadn't seen food for a while, maybe an opportunity, but it doesn't mean that then the armed forces go in and start looting what is not absolutely there. So we had to agree. When we work as humanitarians, we have to talk to the community. We have to talk to the forces. We have to talk to the regional and secure the issue of making sure that food is delivered. So we were able to get Kombolcha, Desi populations, some food. But we wanted to reach North Wollo and Waghamra, right? So now WFP has talked with the World Vision. World Vision is a big international NGO who went to try and look for communities on the ground who will help them distribute the food in people's houses.
CNN and other popular media houses have been using their far-reaching impact to delude the world about what has been happening in Ethiopia. From vilifying the Ethiopian Defense Force and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to sympathizing with the TPLF criminal clique, these media outlets have proved to the whole world that they are antitheses of impartiality. CNN's continued reports on the current situation in Ethiopia were full of misinformation and deliberate distortion of facts, which appear to be absurdly partisan. Solomon Danyi has more.
Big international media houses like CNN are supposed to serve the world with impartiality and credible reporting. But these days, these media houses appear to have been manipulating their far-reaching impact to attack countries, governments and individuals while trying to resuscitate dying criminal groups that have been serving their interests. The way CNN has been reporting the crisis in Ethiopia was a total disgrace for a media house with that reputation. More than 77% of its recent reports about Ethiopia were negative and critical of the Ethiopian government, which was dragged to unwanted war by the TPLF. The media house was never interested to show the world how the TPLF brutally massacred thousands of Ethiopian soldiers who were protecting the people of Tigray from foreign enemies for more than 20 years. It neither was interested to expose TPLF's inconceivable atrocities committed against civilians and shocking destructions of properties including hospitals, violating international law. On the contrary, CNN was repeatedly reproaching the government of Ethiopia for aid blockade in Tigray while the actual war was in the states of Amhara and Afar. CNN refused to show the world the grave human rights violations committed by the TPLF in the two regional states. The TPLF forcefully displaced millions of people from the two regional states whose combined number exceeds the total population of Tigray, but still CNN shouts about the aid in Tigray. In its reporting about Ethiopia, CNN used bias by omission and exaggeration. Its reporting by and large omitted any negative aspects of the TPLF. In contrast, any little progress made by TPLF is emphasized and exaggerated. Bias by source deflection. CNN uses reporters or producers on the ground and various credible and official sources to report what they say without a critical examination. The ground reporters and producers are often unnamed for safety reasons. The credible and official sources are not also independent and are highly partisan. However, they are meant to appear highly legitimate sources and thereby the information is credible. Bias by vilification. About 15% of the recent CNN articles about Ethiopia were engaged in vilifying Ethiopian Airlines and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Ethiopian Airlines is the largest airline in Africa and a proud Ethiopian. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has also a popular backing in Ethiopia. CNN articles mostly frame the conflict in terms of PM Abiy Ahmed's personalities to create finality. Contrary to the interest of most Ethiopians, CNN focused on the destruction of the reputation of these important figures. Bias by conflict of interest. Most of CNN's reports were conducted by a squad of reporters led by the Sudanese journalist and London-based CNN correspondent Nima El-Bagir. Her articles are classified as 100% negative sentiment about the government of Ethiopia. El-Bagir is originally from Sudan, a neighboring country where Ethiopia's contentious issues related to the Grand Renaissance Dam, Al-Fashqa border area, training of TPLF members in Sudan, and so forth. She has repeatedly expressed on Twitter her support for the Sudanese government and her attachment to Sudan. Consequently, it is reasonable to assume that El-Bagir has a personal interest in the Ethiopian reporting to act impartially. The lack of impartiality can be attributed to optimizing profit and satisfying liberal interests. Or maybe CNN is a paid agent of the TPLF from its $30 billion looted asset from Ethiopia while it was in power for 27 years.
Right now in Gondar. Hope you can hear me. There's
Welcome back. You're still watching Addis News Hour. Ethiopian Americans in Maryland have begun activities to punish Democrats and the Biden administration at the ballot box over undue intervention in Ethiopia's internal affairs. The American Ethiopia Public Affairs Committee has started activities to punish the Biden administration at a ballot box during the 2022 U.S. midterm election over pressure and meddling in Ethiopia. In a statement, the committee announced that the campaign will be led by a coalition of 20 Ethiopian American associations in the U.S. It is to be recalled that Ethiopian Americans in Virginia started practical activity to punish Democrats and the Biden administration at large at a ballot box for pressuring Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopians are writing a new version of their history, sacrificing their blood and lives. What has happened in North Shawa is a plus to the incredible heroic acts witnessed in the war fronts of the Amhara and Afar regions. Shete Mogas and his young boy paid the ultimate unique sacrifice to defend their dignity and Ethiopia's sovereignty. The devoted father and his son passed away, killing around 9 terrorists in their environs. Daniel Kasaun presents the story as follows.
It is really incredible phenomenon to find determined persons who have not compromised against their dignity and Ethiopia's sovereignty. What has happened in North Shawa, north of Addis Ababa, is a plus to the incredible heroic acts witnessed in the war fronts of the Amhara and Afar regions. The devoted father, Shete Mogas, and his first son passed away, killing around 10 terrorists in their environs. In all the confrontations from the terrorists, Shete was in the forefront through coordinating the public and involving himself in the war front. The mother of the fallen hero says she has lost her best child, but she is proud of the heroic deeds.
He was my provider, just as a father. He has gone. If you don't have a country, you will have nothing. Everything remains fine in a country. On the other hand, I am so happy because he was courageous and performed heroic deeds.
His fellow comrade narrates us about the final Shete Mogas.
So far, we had frequent phone conversation. When asked him where he was, he responded to me that he is alone, but looking for joining other forces of the Amhara region. Then I advised him to take more cares as enemy forces are around there. Finally, both the father and son were surrounded and paid ultimate sacrifice after killing 9 terrorists.
Shete's brother, Dr. Ethiopian Mogas, is coordinator of the Red Plus within the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. He explains the bravery feats of his brother.
From the very beginning, when we had phone conversation, I advised him not to surrender and to fight until death. I don't regret. Human beings die. We know people in this area never give up. They don't bow for attacks. They are always advised to remain alert from any danger. Their sacrifice is a special one, as they died for their country.
The heroic deeds of the father and his son at this critical time remain to be exemplary for all who are keenly fighting for the unity and sovereignty of Ethiopia.
What a moving story there, but also heroic acts of feats by the father and the son paying the ultimate for their beloved country. Now, moving on, a report says Tigrayan forces suddenly killed dozens of civilians in 2 towns they controlled in the northern Amhara region between August 31 and September 9, 2021. UN rights body has been asked to make international inquiry into war crimes by the TPLF killing civilians in various regions. Abdul Shagri has more.
According to the Human Rights Watch report, on August 31, 2021, Tigrayan forces entered the village of China, and then over the next 5 days, Tigrayan forces summarily executed 26 civilians in 15 separate incidents before withdrawing on September 4, 2021. In the town of Kabo on September 9, 2021, Tigrayan forces summarily executed a total of 23 people in 4 separate incidents, witnesses said. In addition, in July, violence of the terrorist PLA forces have extended to the neighboring Amhara region, leading to large-scale displacement, with 3.7 million people in the region in need of humanitarian assistance, the report stated. In September and October, Human Rights Watch remotely interviewed 36 people, including witnesses to killings, victims' relatives and neighbors, religious figures and doctors about fighting and abuses in and around China Taklahaimanut village in the town of Kobo. 19 people described as seeing Tigrayan fighters in China and Kobo summarily executed a total of 49 people who they said were civilians, providing 44 names. Of civilians who had allegedly been killed in China between August 31st and September 4, 2021, the report disclosed. Taken together, the list contains 74 names, 30 of which witnesses and relatives of those killed also mentioned to Human Rights Watch. In addition to summary executions, civilians may also have been killed during the fighting from crossfire or heavy weapons. A 70-year-old man said that 2 Tigrayan fighters killed his son in China's Agosh Mado neighborhood on September 2, 2021, the report indicated. Witnesses also said Tigrayan forces put civilians at grave risk by holding them in residential compounds and shooting from those compounds at Ethiopian troops positioned on nearby hills, drawing return fire. According to residents of Kobo and nearby villages, on the morning of September 9, 2021, Tigrayan forces from Kobo conducted operations in neighboring villages and they attacked farmers working in the field between the village and Kobo, the report underlined. Human Rights Watch calls UN Security Council needs to pressure the Tigrayan forces' apparent war crimes in China and Kobo spotlight the urgent needs for all warring parties in Ethiopia to prioritize the protection of civilians. The report stated that the UN Human Rights Council should urgently establish an independent international mechanism to investigate abuse in the conflict. The report highlights that these killings and other atrocities underscore the need for an independent international inquiry into alleged war crimes in various regions. The recent power regaining conflict that has been designed by TPLF mafias are typically similar with the way they had moved into Addis Ababa before 30 years, the report said.
Now in business, Ethiopians need to join hands like those in the diaspora to revive the economy post-conflict. Ending the law enforcement operation in North Ethiopia soon is also a good measure to revive the economy. Sentayo Tamrat presents the story as follows.
TPLF aggression in Amhara and Afar regions has caused devastating social, economic and psychological consequences to millions of the residents in the regions. Officials from government and private sectors say TPLF destroyed social and economic infrastructure as it attempted to seize federal power. This has resulted in a great economic damage to the regions and the country at large.
When TPLF is trying to come back to power, they say better to destroy, better to avoid, better to dismiss everything what Ethiopians had earlier. That is what they did in northern part, especially by destroying the infrastructures, power utility, for example, telecom lines, banks, water supply lines, roads, bridges, and a lot of issues. A lot of infrastructure have been destroyed by such kind of group.
A senior economist suggests ending the law enforcement operation shortly as a good measure to revive the economy.
You need to have a resource that can be spent on the procurement of materials that are necessary to stop this conflict. So this has a direct impact on the economy of the country generally. and I think the war has to be stopped very shortly, and it should not take much time. And I think the government should design an efficient and effective strategy whereby this conflict can be resolved in a very short period of time, so that the economy of the country can also recover.
Ethiopians, like the diaspora has been doing in unison to defend the country from external forces, must join hands to revive the economy during post-conflict, Haptamu advises.
After the war, we are going to also work up rehabilitation of the damaged infrastructure. So government alone may not handle such kind of big and huge destruction. So the entire Ethiopians, whether the diaspora or the ones in domestic, need to contribute to assist to rehabilitate and bring things back to their original position.
Over the past 2 weeks, the hopeless TPLF has encountered severe loss on almost all battles.